The thunder of hoofbeats echoed across the Montana plains as Adam Blackburn rode like the devil himself was on his tail, the rain pelting his weathered face beneath the wide brim of his hat. It wasn't the devil chasing him, but something far more terrifying: the prospect of fatherhood. The year was 1885, and Adam was a man known throughout the territory for his iron fist and quick temper, not for tender mercies. "Faster, Thunder," he urged his stallion, leaning into the animal's neck as they crested the hill overlooking the small homestead where Tessa Fleming waited, alone and in labor with their child. The relationship between Adam and Tessa had scandalized the small mining town of Silver Creek. She was the schoolteacher, educated back east, who had arrived 18 months ago with her books and delicate manners. He was the rancher whose name made men reach for their guns and women clutch their pearls. Their love affair had begun as a collision of opposites, her refinement against his ruggedness, but had blossomed into something neither could deny. The rain was coming down in sheets now as Adam dismounted, his boots sinking into mud as he rushed toward the small cabin. Inside, he found Mrs. Holloway, the midwife, her sleeves rolled up and her face grave. "You're too late," she said, not bothering to hide her disdain. "She's been asking for you for hours." Adam removed his sodden hat, water dripping onto the wooden floor. "Is she? She's alive, no thanks to you." The older woman gestured toward the bedroom. "She's exhausted, but she'll make it." Adam moved toward the door, but Mrs. Holloway blocked his path. "That woman in there has more strength in her little finger than you have in your whole body, Blackburn. She deserves better than a man who can't be counted on." "I'm here now," Adam said, his voice low. "For how long? Everyone knows men like you don't have it in them to be gentle, to be patient. That baby needs tenderness, not a father who solves problems with his fists." Adam felt each word like a physical blow, but he held the older woman's gaze. "Let me see her." Mrs. Holloway reluctantly stepped aside. "Don't you upset her. She's been through enough." The bedroom was dim, lit only by a single oil lamp. Tessa lay on the bed, her chestnut hair spread across the pillow, her face pale with exhaustion. In her arms was a tiny bundle. "Adam," she whispered when she saw him, and the relief in her voice made his chest tighten. He approached cautiously, as if she might disappear. "I'm sorry," he said. "The creek flooded. I couldn't—" "You're here now." She shifted the bundle in her arms. "Come meet your daughter." Adam stared at the infant so small and fragile. His hands, rough with calluses and scarred from years of hard living, seemed monstrous in comparison. How could he possibly touch something so delicate without breaking it? "She won't bite," Tessa said with a tired smile. "I don't know how to hold a baby," Adam admitted. "I'll show you." With Tessa's guidance, Adam carefully took the newborn into his arms. The baby's face was red and wrinkled, her eyes tightly closed, wisps of dark hair peeking out from beneath the blanket. "She's so small," he whispered. "She's perfect," Tessa said. "We'll call her Hope." Adam felt something break open inside him as he looked down at his daughter. The hard shell he'd built around his heart cracked, allowing a tenderness he didn't know he possessed to emerge. "Hello, Hope," he said softly. "I'm your pa." Mrs. Holloway watched from the doorway, her expression skeptical. "She'll need feeding soon," she said. "And Tessa needs rest." Adam nodded, carefully returning the baby to Tessa's arms. "I'll be right outside if you need me." Over the next several days, Adam moved between the barn where the work of the ranch continued despite the new arrival and the cabin, where Tessa recovered and Hope demanded attention with surprising lung power for one so small. Mrs. Holloway remained, making it clear with every disapproving glance that she expected Adam to fail at this new role of father. The town had similar expectations. When Sheriff Davis came by with congratulations, his words carried an unspoken warning. "Never thought I'd see the day Adam Blackburn became a family man," he said, eyeing Adam with undisguised doubt. "Hope that temper of yours has cooled some." Adam merely nodded, unwilling to engage. He had more important concerns than the town's opinion of him. One night, a week after Hope's birth, Adam returned to the cabin to find Tessa in tears, the baby wailing inconsolably in her cradle. "She won't stop crying," Tessa said, her voice cracking with exhaustion. "I fed her, changed her, walked with her. Nothing helps." Mrs. Holloway had gone to town for supplies, leaving them alone for the first time since the birth. Adam could see the fatigue etched on Tessa's face, the dark circles under her eyes. "You need sleep," he said firmly. "I'll take her." Tessa looked uncertain. "Adam, you don't have to go to bed, Tessa. I've got her." After a moment's hesitation, Tessa nodded and retreated to the bedroom, closing the door behind her. Adam was left alone with his howling daughter. "All right, little one," he said, carefully lifting Hope from her cradle. "What's all this fuss about?" The baby continued to cry, her tiny face red with the effort. Adam held her awkwardly against his chest, terrified he might somehow hurt her. "Shoo!" he tried, patting her back gently. "Your mama needs rest." Hope was not impressed by this reasoning and continued to wail. Adam paced the small room, speaking softly, trying every position he could think of to comfort her. Nothing worked. Finally, desperate, Adam took Hope outside onto the porch. The night was clear after days of rain, and a full moon hung low in the sky, casting silver light across the land. The sudden change in environment seemed to startle Hope, and her crying paused briefly before resuming with renewed vigor. "Look at that moon," Adam said, pointing upward. "Biggest one I've seen all year. When you're older, I'll teach you how to read the stars. How to find your way home if you're ever lost." Hope hiccuped between sobs, her cries beginning to soften. "You see that bright one there?" Adam continued, rocking gently from side to side. "That's the North Star. Always constant, always true. Like my love for you and your mama." To his amazement, Hope's crying began to subside. Encouraged, Adam kept talking, telling her about the constellations, about the land that would one day be hers, about the horses he would teach her to ride. All the while, he rocked her gently in his arms, his movements becoming more natural, more confident. "That's it," he murmured as her eyes began to close. "That's my girl." Adam continued rocking her long after she had fallen asleep, mesmerized by the perfect weight of her in his arms, by the soft sounds of her breathing. The moon climbed higher in the sky, bathing them in its gentle light. He didn't hear the door open behind him. "Adam," Tessa's voice was soft with wonder. He turned to find both Tessa and Mrs. Holloway, who must have returned while he was focused on Hope watching him from the doorway. "She's asleep," he whispered, afraid to disturb the miracle in his arms. Mrs. Holloway's expression was unreadable, but there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before, a grudging respect, perhaps. "Well," she said finally, "would you look at that?" In the weeks that followed, Adam surprised everyone, including himself, with his dedication to his new family. The man who had once been known for breaking broncos now spent hours rocking his daughter to sleep. Hands that had bloodied countless men in saloon brawls now gently bathed an infant. The transformation wasn't immediate or always smooth, but it was undeniable. As winter settled over the Montana territory, Adam and Tessa established a rhythm to their new life together. Mrs. Holloway eventually returned to town, though she visited frequently, her initial skepticism gradually replaced by approval, though she would never admit as much to Adam directly. One evening in early December, with snow falling silently outside, Adam returned from tending the horses to find Tessa standing in the middle of the cabin, an envelope in her hand and tears on her cheeks. "What is it?" he asked, immediately concerned. "It's from my father," she said, her voice strained. "He's coming here." Adam felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Tessa's father, Judge Thomas Fleming, was a prominent figure in Boston society. He had disowned Tessa when she'd refused to marry the lawyer he'd chosen for her, and had instead taken the teaching position in Silver Creek. The fact that she had then fallen in love with a notorious cowboy would only compound his disappointment. "When?" Adam asked. "Next week. He says he wants to assess my situation and discuss my return to Boston." Tessa crumpled the letter in her fist. "As if I would ever leave you and Hope." Adam crossed the room and took her in his arms. "He can't make you go anywhere. You don't know my father, Adam. He doesn't take no for an answer." "Neither do I," Adam said firmly. "This is your home now. Our home." Despite his confident words to Tessa, Adam spent the next week in a state of anxiety he would never admit to. He had faced down armed outlaws with less trepidation than he felt about meeting Judge Fleming. What respectable man would want his daughter with someone like Adam? A man with a reputation for violence and little formal education, whose only real assets were a small ranch and a determination to provide for his family. The day of the judge's arrival, Adam made sure the ranch was in impeccable order. He wore his best shirt free of patches and even trimmed his beard. Hope, now 2 months old and beginning to smile, was dressed in the christening gown Mrs. Holloway had made for her. When the stagecoach arrived in the early afternoon, Adam stood on the porch watching as a tall, distinguished man in an expensive coat descended. Judge Fleming looked exactly as Adam had imagined, stern, imposing, with silver hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. Tessa went to greet her father, Hope in her arms. Adam hung back, giving them a moment of privacy, though he could see the stiffness in Tessa's posture and the lack of warmth in the judge's embrace. Finally, Tessa turned toward the house. "Father, I would like you to meet Adam Blackburn," she said formally. "Adam, this is my father, Judge Thomas Fleming." Adam stepped forward, extending his hand. "Judge Fleming, welcome to our home." The judge regarded Adam's outstretched hand as if it were a dead snake before briefly clasping it. "Mr. Blackburn," he said coldly, "I have heard a great deal about you." "None of it good, I expect," Adam replied evenly. The hint of a smile touched the judge's lips, though it did not reach his eyes. "Indeed not." "Well, at least you'll have the chance to form your own opinion while you're here." "Yes, I certainly will." The judge turned to Tessa. "Now, let me see this child properly." The afternoon was a tense affair. Judge Fleming inspected the cabin with barely disguised contempt, asked pointed questions about Adam's finances and future plans, and made it clear that he considered his daughter's situation both temporary and beneath her. Tessa was educated at the finest schools in Boston, he told Adam over the dinner Tessa had prepared. She was meant for a life of culture and refinement, not. He gestured dismissively at their surroundings. "Father," Tessa said sharply, "I chose this life." "You chose to teach in a frontier school," the judge corrected. "Not to throw your life away on a man with a reputation for brawling and breaking the law." Adam set down his fork. "With respect, sir, whatever I was before I met your daughter isn't who I am now." "A leopard doesn't change its spots, Mr. Blackburn." "Perhaps not," Adam conceded. "But a man can change his ways when he has something worth changing for." The judge scoffed. "Noble sentiments. But I've heard your type make promises before." "They weren't me," Adam said simply. After dinner, Tessa put Hope to bed while Adam showed the judge to the small guest room they had prepared. As he set down the judge's valise, Adam decided to address the situation directly. "I know I'm not what you wanted for Tessa," he said. But I love her and Hope more than my own life. I would die before I let any harm come to them. The judge regarded him coolly. Dying for one's family is easy, Mr. Blackburn. Living for them day after day, year after year, that's the true test of a man's character. And frankly, I have serious doubts about yours. Adam accepted the judgment silently. He had expected nothing less. Late that night, Hope's cries woke the household. Adam, who had been sleeping lightly, rose immediately. "I'll get her," he told Tessa. "You rest." Adam made his way to Hope's cradle in the main room of the cabin. The baby was fussing, her face scrunched up in displeasure. "What's the matter, little one?" Adam asked softly, lifting her into his arms. "Bad dream." Hope continued to cry. Adam checked her diaper, which was dry, and knew she couldn't be hungry as Tessa had fed her just before bed. Sometimes, he had learned, babies simply needed comforting. He wrapped Hope in a warm blanket and, as had become his custom on restless nights, took her outside to see the stars. The December night was crisp and clear, the moon full and bright in the sky. Adam held Hope close to his chest, her small body warm against his heart. "There now," he said, beginning the gentle rocking motion that usually soothed her. "Look at that moon, Hope. It's watching over us, just like I'll always watch over you." He began to hum softly, a tune his own mother had sung to him long ago, before illness had taken her when he was just a boy. The melody came back to him now, a connection between generations that he hadn't anticipated. As he rocked and hummed, Hope's cries gradually subsided. Her dark eyes, so like Tessa's, seemed to focus on his face with an intensity that belied her young age. Adam smiled down at her. "That's my brave girl," he whispered. "Strong like your mama." He continued rocking her beneath the moon, talking softly about the future he envisioned for her, riding her first pony, learning to read from her mother, growing up wild and free on the Montana plains, but with the education and opportunities Tessa valued. In his arms, Hope drifted back to sleep, her small hand curled trustingly around his finger. Adam was so absorbed in his daughter that he didn't notice Judge Fleming standing in the doorway of the cabin, watching the scene with undisguised surprise. The next morning, there was a subtle shift in the judge's demeanor. He was still formal, still skeptical, but the open hostility had lessened. He asked Adam about his plans for the ranch, listening with more interest than before to Adam's description of the new breeding program he was implementing with his horses. After breakfast, when Tessa took Hope for her morning nap, the judge suggested a walk. Adam agreed, though he was puzzled by the invitation. They followed the path down to the creek, now frozen at the edges with winter ice. The judge was silent for a long time, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. "I saw you with the child last night," he finally said. "On the porch." Adam nodded, uncertain how to respond. "You have a gentleness with her that I wouldn't have expected, given your reputation." "Hope deserves nothing less," Adam said simply. The judge stopped walking and turned to face Adam directly. "When Tessa wrote to inform me of her situation, I was prepared to bring her home by force if necessary, to remove her and the child from what I assumed was an unsuitable environment." Adam felt his muscles tense. "And now I'm less certain." The judge's expression was troubled. "My daughter has always been strong-willed, independent. When she defied me about the teaching position, I thought it was mere rebellion. That she would come to her senses after experiencing the hardships of frontier life. Tessa isn't afraid of hardship." "No," the judge agreed. "She isn't. But neither is she a fool. If her life here with you was truly miserable, she would have accepted my help. I would never make her stay if she wanted to leave," Adam said quietly. The judge studied him for a long moment. "Perhaps not. But the question remains, Can a man with your history truly provide the stable, gentle environment a child needs? I don't know, Adam admitted, but I intend to spend the rest of my life trying. That evening, as snowflakes began to fall again outside the cabin windows, the small family gathered around the fireplace. Hope, awake and alert, lay on a blanket watching the play of light and shadow from the flames. Tessa read aloud from one of her favorite books while Adam listened, occasionally adding another log to the fire. The judge observed them silently from his chair in the corner, his expression thoughtful. When Tessa finished reading, he cleared his throat. "I've been considering your situation," he announced, "and I have a proposition." Tessa tensed, and Adam placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I own several properties in Boston that require management," the judge continued. "I could arrange a position for Adam that would provide a comfortable living. You and Hope could return to society, to the life you were born for, Tessa." Adam felt Tessa's shoulder stiffen beneath his hand. Before she could speak, he addressed the judge. "That's a generous offer, sir. But my life is here. Our life is here. You would condemn my daughter to this primitive existence when I'm offering you a respectable position in Boston?" "I'm not condemning her to anything," Adam replied evenly. "Tessa chose this life. She chooses it every day." "And what about the child?" the judge demanded. "What kind of future will she have out here, so far from proper schools and society?" "She'll have the sky and the mountains," Tessa interjected. "She'll have books and music and parents who adore her. Most importantly, she'll have the freedom to become whoever she wants to be." The judge's expression hardened. "This isn't over, Tessa. I won't stand by while you throw away your life and your daughter's future." Adam felt a familiar anger rising in him, the quick temper that had earned him his reputation, but he forced it down. Fighting with the judge would only prove the man right about him. "Sir," he said carefully, "I understand your concern for Tessa and Hope, but this is our home, and we're happy here. I may not be the man you would have chosen for your daughter, but I love her and our child with everything I am." Words, the judge dismissed. "Any man can say the right words." "Then judge me by my actions," Adam challenged. "Stay. See how we live. See who I am with them." The judge considered this for a moment. "Very well," he said finally. "I had planned to return to Boston next week, but I will extend my visit. Let's see if your actions match your words, Mr. Blackburn." Over the next several days, the judge shadowed Adam as he went about his work on the ranch. He watched as Adam cared for the horses, repaired fences, and chopped wood for the winter. More importantly, he observed Adam's interactions with Tessa and Hope, the tenderness that now came naturally to him, the patience he showed when Hope was fussy, the respect and partnership he shared with Tessa. One afternoon, as they were checking the cattle in the lower pasture, the judge broached the subject of Adam's past. "Sheriff Davis tells me you've been in your share of trouble," he said. "Bar fights, assault charges, even a suspicion of rustling, though nothing was proven." Adam didn't deny it. "I was younger then, angry. My father died when I was 15, leaving me this land and a mountain of debt. I worked myself to the bone to keep it, and sometimes that anger spilled over. And now," Adam looked toward the distant cabin where Tessa would be waiting, "now I have something worth being better for." The judge nodded thoughtfully but said nothing more. That night, as a blizzard descended on the ranch, trapping them all inside the small cabin, Hope came down with a fever. Her pitiful cries filled the house as Tessa tried every remedy she knew. "We need to get her to the doctor," Tessa said, her face pale with worry as she pressed a cool cloth to Hope's forehead. Adam looked out the window at the swirling snow. "It's 5 miles to town in good weather. In this, it would be suicide to try. We can't just do nothing," Tessa cried, tears filling her eyes. Mrs. Holloway, Adam said suddenly. She would know what to do. Her cabin is only a mile down the creek. You can't go out in that storm, the judge protested, speaking up for the first time. It's madness. I know this land, Adam said, already pulling on his heaviest coat. And I know my horse. We'll make it. Tessa caught his arm. Adam, please be careful. He kissed her quickly. Keep hope cool. I'll be back with Mrs. Holloway as soon as I can. The storm outside was even worse than it had appeared from the window. The wind cut through Adam's clothes like knives, and the snow was so thick he could barely see his hand in front of his face. But he knew the path to Mrs. Holloway's cabin by heart, and Thunder was a sure-footed mount who trusted his master. The journey that normally took 20 minutes stretched to over an hour as Adam fought his way through the blizzard. When he finally reached the midwife's cabin, he was half frozen, his beard crusted with ice. Mrs. Holloway didn't waste time with questions. She gathered her medical supplies into a bag and, despite Adam's protests that she should wait out the storm, insisted on returning with him immediately. Babies don't wait for good weather, she said firmly. And neither do I. The journey back was even more harrowing, with Mrs. Holloway riding behind Adam on Thunder. By the time they reached the ranch, Adam could no longer feel his hands or feet, but he helped the midwife down and led her to the cabin where Tessa waited anxiously with hope. Thank God, Tessa breathed when they entered. Mrs. Holloway went straight to the baby, examining her with practiced efficiency. How long has she had the fever? It started this afternoon, Tessa said, but it's gotten worse in the last few hours. The midwife nodded. I've seen this before. It's moving through all the babies in town. We need to keep her cool and get some medicine in her. From her bag, Mrs. Holloway produced herbs and bottles. She mixed a tincture and showed Tessa how to administer a few drops to Hope. This will bring down the fever, she explained, but she'll need a dose every 4 hours through the night. Adam, who had been silently thawing by the fire, stepped forward. I'll stay up with her. Tessa, you should rest. Mrs. Holloway gave Adam an appraising look. You're in no condition to be nursing a sick baby, Blackburn. You nearly froze to death getting to my place. I'll be fine, Adam insisted, though in truth every bone in his body ached with cold and exhaustion. The judge, who had been observing from the corner, suddenly spoke up. I will take the first watch, he said. To everyone's surprise, he held out his arms for Hope. I raised a child once, if you recall. I'm quite capable of administering medicine. Tessa hesitated, then carefully transferred Hope to her grandfather's arms. The judge cradled the infant with unexpected tenderness. Rest, he told Adam and Tessa. Both of you. I'll wake you if there's any change. Too exhausted to argue, Adam allowed Tessa to lead him to their bedroom. As he drifted off to sleep, the last thing he saw was the judge sitting beside the fire, rocking Hope gently and speaking to her in low, soothing tones. Adam woke several hours later to find Tessa's side of the bed empty. He rose and made his way to the main room, where he found her sitting with her father. Hope was asleep in her cradle, her breathing easier than before. Her fever has broken, Tessa said softly when she saw Adam. Father has been up all night with her. The judge looked up, fatigue evident in his face. She's a fighter, he said, like her mother. And her father, Tessa added with a pointed look at the judge. Judge Fleming nodded slowly. Yes, he conceded, like her father as well. The blizzard continued for 3 days, keeping them all confined to the cabin. During that time, a subtle shift occurred in the relationship between Adam and the judge. They were not friends, exactly, but a mutual respect had begun to develop forged in their shared concern for Hope and recognition of each other's devotion to Tessa. On the 4th day, the storm finally broke, leaving the world outside transformed into a pristine landscape of white. The sun sparkled off the snow with blinding brilliance. "I should check the cattle," Adam said, preparing to venture out for the first time since his journey to Mrs. Holloway's. "I'll accompany you," the judge offered unexpectedly. They worked together to dig a path from the cabin to the barn, then saddled horses to make the journey to the pasture where the cattle had been moved before the storm. The work was hard in the deep snow, but the judge tackled it without complaint, following Adam's lead. They found the cattle huddled together for warmth, all present and accounted for. As they turned back toward the ranch, the judge broke the companionable silence that had developed between them. "I've been thinking about your situation," he said. Adam braced himself for another attempt to persuade them to move to Boston. "Sir," the judge held up a hand. "Hear me out. I still believe Tessa could have a more comfortable life in Boston. But I've come to realize that isn't what's most important." Adam waited, surprised by the admission. "What matters is that she's loved," the judge continued. "That hope is loved. And despite my initial skepticism, I cannot deny that you provide that in abundance." "Thank you," Adam said simply. "However," the judge added, "I remain concerned about your financial stability. This ranch is small and raising a child is expensive. Education alone. I've been saving." Adam interrupted. "Every extra cent goes into an account for Hope's education. And I'm expanding the ranch. The new breeding program should increase our income significantly within a few years." The judge nodded thoughtfully. "What if I were to offer an investment?" "Not charity," he added quickly, seeing Adam's expression. "A business arrangement. I provide capital for expansion, you provide the expertise and labor. We share the profits." Adam considered the offer carefully. His pride wanted to refuse to prove he could provide for his family without help. But practicality won out. With the judge's investment, he could build the ranch into something truly substantial, securing Hope's future and creating a legacy to pass on. "I would consider that," Adam said finally, "as a business arrangement." The judge smiled, perhaps the first genuine smile Adam had seen from him. "Excellent. We can discuss the details before I return to Boston." When they arrived back at the cabin, they found Tessa on the porch, Hope bundled warmly in her arms, enjoying the sunshine after days of confinement. "Everything all right at the lower pasture?" she asked. "All present and accounted for," Adam confirmed, dismounting. He moved to join Tessa on the porch, dropping a kiss on Hope's forehead before kissing Tessa as well. The judge watched the scene with a thoughtful expression before clearing his throat. "Tessa, I owe you an apology," he said. "I came here with preconceived notions about your life, about Adam. I was wrong." Tessa's eyes widened in surprise. "Father, let me finish," the judge said. "I may not have chosen this life for you, but I can see now that it's where you belong. You've built something real here, something meaningful. I'm proud of you." Tears filled Tessa's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. That evening, after Hope had been put to bed, the three adults sat around the table, discussing the judge's investment proposal. Tessa, with her education and sharp mind, suggested modifications to protect everyone's interests. Adam outlined his vision for expanding the ranch. The judge listened and contributed, treating Adam not as an unworthy suitor for his daughter, but as a respected partner. As the conversation continued, Adam found himself thinking about how far they had come not just in the judge's estimation, but in his own life. 2 years ago, he had been a man defined by his anger, by the chip on his shoulder and the reputation that preceded him. Now he was a father, a partner, a man with plans and dreams that extended far beyond himself. Later that night, with Tessa asleep beside him, Adam rose quietly and went to check on Hope. The moon, full and bright, shone through the window, casting silver light across her cradle. Adam stood watching his daughter sleep, marveling at the perfect miniature of her fingers, the soft rise and fall of her chest. He didn't hear the judge approach until the older man spoke. "It never leaves you, you know," he said softly. "That feeling of wonder." Adam glanced up, surprised. "Sir." "I still remember the first time I held Tessa," the judge continued. "So small, so perfect. I was terrified I would drop her. Her mother laughed at me." Adam smiled. "I felt the same about Hope. Still do sometimes." "That fear is good," the judge said. "It keeps us vigilant. But don't let it overshadow the joy." They stood together in the moonlight, watching Hope sleep, two men from different worlds united by love for the same child. The judge departed a week later, leaving behind detailed plans for the ranch expansion and a promise to return in the spring to see his granddaughter again. As Adam helped load his bags onto the stagecoach, the judge offered his hand. "Take care of them, Blackburn." Adam clasped the offered hand firmly. "With my life, sir." "I believe you will," the judge said, and there was no longer any doubt in his voice. As the stagecoach pulled away, Adam returned to the porch where Tessa waited with Hope. She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. "Well, that went better than expected," she said with a smile. Adam laughed. "Your father is a formidable man. I'm glad he's on our side now." "He respects you," Tessa said. "He wouldn't have offered the investment otherwise." "He respects us," Adam corrected. "What we've built together." That night, after Tessa had gone to bed, Adam took Hope outside to continue their tradition of looking at the stars. The February night was cold but clear, the moon full once again, just as it had been on the night he had first rocked her to sleep. "You're growing so fast," he told her as she gazed up at him with Tessa's dark eyes. "Soon you'll be running around, getting into all sorts of trouble." Hope cooed in response, her small hand reaching up to touch his bearded cheek. Adam caught it gently, pressing a kiss to her palm. "I'm not perfect, little one," he said softly. "I've made more mistakes than I can count. But I promise you this. I will always try to be the man you deserve as a father, the man your mother believes I can be." As if understanding, Hope smiled, a toothless grin that made Adam's heart squeeze with love so intense it was almost painful. "That's my girl," he whispered, rocking her beneath the moon. "That's my Hope." Spring arrived in a riot of wildflowers and new growth. The ranch expansion was well underway, with new fencing going up and additional hands hired to help with the increased workload. Judge Fleming's investment had already begun to transform the modest operation into something substantial. Tessa had taken over the bookkeeping, applying her education to the business side of the ranch while continuing to teach Hope letters and numbers, though the child was barely 6 months old. "It's never too early," Tessa insisted when Adam teased her about it. "Besides, she likes the sound of my voice. Who doesn't?" Adam replied, pulling her in for a kiss that quickly deepened until Hope's demanding cries from the next room reminded them of their parental duties. Life settled into a rhythm of work and family, challenges and joys. The town's perception of Adam gradually shifted as they witnessed his transformation from notorious hothead to devoted father and ambitious rancher. Even Mrs. Holloway, who visited regularly to check on Hope's development, had become something of an ally. "Never thought I'd see the day," she remarked one afternoon as she watched Adam patiently teaching Hope to clap her hands together. "Adam Blackburn, family man." "People change," Tessa said, smiling at the scene. "Some do," Mrs. Holloway conceded, "when they have reason enough." In May, Judge Fleming returned as promised. He arrived with trunks full of gifts for Hope and plans to stay for a month to see the progress on the ranch expansion. The awkwardness of his first visit was gone, replaced by the comfortable familiarity of family. One evening, As they sat on the porch watching the sunset, the judge raised the subject of marriage. "Have you two considered making your arrangement official?" he asked bluntly. Tessa and Adam exchanged glances. They had discussed marriage, of course, but the demands of the ranch and caring for Hope had pushed it to the background. "We've been somewhat preoccupied," Adam admitted. "Nonsense," the judge said. "If you can find time to expand a ranch, you can find time to marry the mother of your child." Tessa laughed. "Father, that's hardly romantic." "Romance is all well and good," the judge replied. "But so is respectability. Besides, I've taken the liberty of having the papers drawn up. Judge Reynolds in town can perform the ceremony next week." "You've been busy," Adam observed, amused rather than offended by the judge's presumption. "Hope should have married parents," the judge said simply, "and I should like to see my daughter properly wed before I return to Boston." Adam looked at Tessa, raising an eyebrow in question. She smiled and nodded. "All right, Judge," Adam said. "You've got yourself a wedding to attend." The ceremony was small but joyful, held in the garden behind the cabin where spring flowers provided natural decoration. Mrs. Holloway stood as Tessa's witness, while Sheriff Davis, who had become something of a friend to Adam over the past months, stood for him. Hope, dressed in a gown the judge had brought from Boston, watched wide-eyed from her grandfather's arms as her parents exchanged vows. "I, Adam, take you, Tessa, to be my wife," Adam said, his voice steady despite the emotion tightening his throat. "I promise to love you, honor you, and protect you all the days of my life." Tessa's eyes shone with tears as she repeated her own vows. When Judge Reynolds pronounced them husband and wife, the small gathering erupted in cheers. The celebration continued well into the evening, with neighbors and townsfolk joining them for a feast prepared by Mrs. Holloway and several other women from town. There was music and dancing, laughter and good wishes. Adam, who had once been an outsider in Silver Creek, found himself surrounded by people who now considered him one of their own. Late in the evening, as the party continued around them, Adam took Hope from Tessa's arms. "I'll put her to bed," he said. "You enjoy yourself." Inside the quiet cabin, Adam rocked Hope gently, singing softly until her eyes began to close. As on so many nights before, he carried her outside to show her the stars. The moon, nearly full again, cast its silver light over the land that would one day be hers. "You're a Blackburn now," he told her softly. "Officially, though you always were in my heart." From behind him came Tessa's voice. "Both of us were." Adam turned to find his wife, the words still new and wonderful in his mind, watching them with a smile. She came to stand beside him, slipping her arm around his waist. "Happy?" he asked. "Completely," she answered, reaching up to stroke Hope's dark hair. "I was just thinking about the first time I saw you with her. How natural you looked despite your protests that you didn't know how to hold a baby." Adam chuckled. "I was terrified. Still am, sometimes." "You're a wonderful father," Tessa said. "Better than anyone expected. Certainly better than you expected of yourself." "I had good motivation," Adam replied, looking down at Hope's sleeping face. "And a good teacher." He pulled Tessa closer with his free arm. "I love you, Mrs. Blackburn. And I love you, Mr. Blackburn." They stood together in the moonlight, a family united by love and strengthened by the challenges they had overcome. Behind them, the sounds of celebration continued. Before them stretched a future bright with promise. "They said a cowboy couldn't be gentle," Tessa murmured, echoing the words Mrs. Holloway had spoken so many months ago. "They were wrong." Adam pressed a kiss to her temple. "About that and many other things." In the years that followed, the Blackburn Ranch prospered beyond even Judge Fleming's ambitious projections. Adam's skill with horses, combined with Tessa's sharp business sense, transformed it into one of the most successful operations in the territory. Hope grew into a lively, intelligent child with her mother's love of books and her father's affinity for horses. 2 years after their wedding, Tessa gave birth to a son they named Thomas, after her father. 2 years after that, twins Emma and James joined the family, completing their home. Through it all, the challenges of ranching, the joys and trials of raising 4 children, the gradual development of Silver Creek from frontier town to thriving community, Adam and Tessa remained deeply in love, partners in every sense of the word. And on nights when the moon was full, Adam still took each child in turn onto the porch to show them the stars, to rock them gently in the strong arms that had once been known only for their capacity to fight, but had learned the far more important skill of holding those he loved.